Welcome to Rates and Barrels. It is December 1st. Derek Van Riper, Eno Saris here with you on this episode. We catch up on a busy week around Major League Baseball. We take a week off from recording, and naturally, we get multiple trades. One unexpected big contract swap, one in which the Red Sox land another quality starting pitcher. We get a huge free agent signing, Dylan Cease, breaking the seal at the top of the market on the pitching side with a 7-year deal with the Jays. We've got some relievers on the move, and we've got some stuff that I think is actually pretty interesting that would be almost front of rundown had those things not happened. So that's what happens. You take a week off, you eat some turkey, you come back, and you've got 2.5 hours of content, you know?
Yeah. What do we pod? We pod like 50 weeks of the year.
Pretty much, yeah, about 50 weeks of the year. We think Thanksgiving's a good week to take off, and Major League executives don't take Thanksgiving week off. They're just animals. They make trades the day before Thanksgiving a lot of times. I remember writing the Brewers-Padres, Luis Urias, Eric Lauer, Trent Grisham deal up a couple of years ago in a coffee shop the day before Thanksgiving. I didn't have anything going on. I was happy to do it, but they don't stop. So Before we get into the aforementioned content, how was your Thanksgiving?
Oh, it was great. We went to Fresno, fabulous Fresno, and saw the family out there. We did get stuck in pretty mammoth traffic. We were supposed to leave Tuesday, and there were some meetings and some things that went down, and we left Tuesday at 5:00.
That's not a good time to go anywhere in California.
So turned a 2-hour and 45-minute thing into 4+.
Good job, man.
That part?
Congratulations.
That part wasn't great. But and we didn't make turkey. I made a beef roast. We had some nice scalloped potatoes, and it's pretty mellow.
Hey, can't go wrong there. We got both sides of the family in one day. So it was about 3 hours of driving and 6 hours of visiting, which was really 6 hours of visiting is 6 hours of chasing my son around because you're not. Are you really relaxing with a 2-year-old? No, you've been through that phase before. No. And then we hit a snowstorm in the Midwest. We got a foot of snow on Saturday, which is
once you
not
were back.
Normal. Yeah, we were back home. We drove home Thursday night. So we were able to do it all one day, have a rest day. And on that rest day, I was thinking about it. I'm like, ooh, we're getting a snowstorm in November. Might be snowblower time. I don't own one. Thinking about it all day. I go to get a pizza. I have a friend text me out of the blue. Hey, do you need a snowblower? We're getting a new one. And I was like, yeah, yep. How much do you want for it? When can I get it? And they're like, 8:00 tonight. It was 6:00. Just come over and get it and you can have it. Okay, sounds good.
Nice.
So I've got a snowblower. Yeah, so now I'm watching snowblower videos on YouTube, trying to learn how to get it up and running a little better and like optimize it. And I'm new. I'm a new person, man. I'm excited. It's gonna be great. I'm gonna start making tutorial videos, but like this is how you replace a snapped auger cable on your 2-stage snowblower, and it's gonna be 12 minutes. Like it's gonna be 3 hours of a project cut down to 12 minutes, and no one will know.
I'm so bad at that stuff because I don't have the patience for it. I snap. Speaking of snap cables,
we didn't live through the Great Depression, and I think that's a big part of why we're not handy people. So, we'll get there. I'll teach you. Once I learn the snowblower, I will teach you how to fix a snowblower.
I don't need a snowblower.
You might someday. You never know. Never say never. Life comes at you fast. All right, let's get to the rundown. Hot stove season is rolling, right? The fire's crackling. The Mets traded Brandon Nimmo to the Rangers for Marcus Semien. I didn't think that was a high probability sort of trade. I mean, I think the possibility of a Nimmo trade probably was more on the radar of those two possible players moving. The swap is interesting here because the Rangers end up saving a little bit of money. The Mets are sending $5 million along with Nimmo to cover the deal. Semien's only owed $72 million through 2028. Nimmo's owed less per year for a longer period of time, $101 million through 2030. So the Mets get the older player, but the guy that is a better defender and has more questions about his bat coming off these last two seasons. And the Rangers get a guy that is kind of an underrated hitter and a fast declining defensive outfielder. So kind of an interesting your problem for my problem. Let's shift some money around big deal that came out of relative nowhere.
For one, the piece by Will Salmon, the angle that Will Salmon took on this was interesting. Was that there is no sentiment in a Stearns run organization. There is no, we'll hold on to Nimmo because he's homegrown and he's been a valued Met and none of that. We signed him to this long deal. I to some extent think that this might be about the last few years on this deal. If you look at it, it's 5 years of contract left for Nimmo versus 3 years for Semien. And I just wonder how much that figured into the calculus here. Because I think, at least bat-wise, you'd rather have Nimmo the bat going forward. I do think that there's something here with the athleticism and the shape of the athleticism. We know that Nimmo's had some knee problems, and you can see in his sprint speed here that we're showing that he went from 66, 68th percentile to 46th percentile last year, while Semien's sprint speed has stayed elite. He was 84th percentile in 2023. He's been 81st the last 2 years. Now, Nimmo's bat speed is better, but he took a hit in 2025 as well. So I wonder if they're I'm not saying that they're necessarily using sprint speed as the only indicator of athleticism, but I wonder if they're looking at these two players and saying Semien the athlete is in better shape. Nimmo might already be falling off as an athlete. If he becomes a 3 true outcome type slugger, he doesn't really have the Schwarberian slugger level, in him. So he's probably more like a 25 to 30 homer guy with a low batting average and a decent OBP. That's who he can be going forward. And if they think, oh, he's a DH in year 2 or 3 of this deal, then they don't want those last 2 years because they don't really want to plug up a DH with Nimmo, I think, especially if Soto is headed there.
Yeah, and I think the other aspect of it for the Mets is they have greater ambitions in terms of ceiling, right? The core with Nimmo in it wasn't quite enough to get them where they want to go. David Stearns has talked a lot about wanting to improve defensively. They do that. Although I think you can push back a little bit on that only in the context of saying how good is Marcus Semien's defense going to be for his age 35, 36, and 37 seasons, right? I mean,
and also compared to the guys pushing out, right? Like Jeff McNeil, if you look at the overall numbers, they're like, oh, Semien's much better. But if you look at Jeff McNeil, the second baseman, he was a 4 outs above average 4 run value guy last year. Mm-hmm. So, I don't know that that part. I don't know. I think I get what you're saying though. Like, could they sign an outfielder?
They could sign one. They could be in on Tucker. They could be in on Bellinger. They could trade for someone. I mean, there's a lot of options for the Mets, and the dreaded flexibility word. I thought when David Stearns took over a team with really deep pockets, the word flexibility would maybe be used less frequently in his dialogue. It's still a word that follows him around. It's there all the time, but it's a different kind of flexibility. It's not financial flexibility. It's more roster flexibility. It's what can we do that makes this team better in the long run. So, I mean, I understand why they did it. I think the Rangers could come out of this looking okay. I mean, they can play Brandon Nimmo in left field for at least a couple of years, and then he can be a DH. They don't really have a player that you see long-term other than Corey Seager, where you'd say, oh, those DH at-bats 2 or 3 years from now might be accounted for, right? But if Seager's still a shortstop today, he could be something
second
else.
Or first.
Yeah. So
third.
You don't have quite the same longer-term jam that you're worried about. And if you make this move now, it's on the table. It's something you can do. If you wait 2 years in the Mets position, then maybe you are in that no leverage gridlock sort of thing and you're eating more money. So I don't know. Maybe it's a win-win. I could see the Rangers coming out slightly ahead on this, though, because I think Nimmo's an underrated hitter. He's an underrated Met for what it's worth. I mean, Mets fans probably have an appropriate feel for this, but I was surprised to see just how high Brandon Nimmo ranks among all-time Mets in WAR. He's 7th. Can you name the 6 Mets who have higher position players, that is, the 6 position players with higher WARs than Brandon Nimmo as Mets?
David Wright.
David Wright's number 1 by a healthy margin.
Yeah. The first baseman, Keith Hernandez.
Keith Hernandez is 9th.
Jose Reyes?
Yes, Jose Reyes is 3rd.
Are they old school guys? Like,
oh yeah, there's one kind of old school guy that was really cool in the 80s. There's
Howard Johnson.
He's cooler than Howard Johnson. I don't know if Howard Johnson is uncool, but people I know were collecting a lot more of the guy that's second in WAR among position players as Mets
Right.
when they were buying baseball cards. And I don't think Howard Johnson was as many kids' favorite players as this guy.
Was Bobby Bonilla there long enough?
No,
he wasn't.
no, Bobby Bonilla is not in the top 10.
I'm not good at the old school because I was a Braves fan during the old school.
But this guy played in an era in which you were beginning to love baseball. This is not before your time.
This is an 80s guy.
Yep, 80s guy.
Just give it to me.
Darryl Strawberry.
Oh, God. Come on, Eno.
David Wright, Darryl Strawberry, Jose Reyes. Francisco Lindor is already 4th, and that's in 758 games.
Actually, yeah.
Yeah, Carlos Beltran and Edgardo Alfonso is the one that of the 6
Edgardo
ahead of Nimmo. I don't think I realized how good.
Strawberry, come on, man.
I don't think I realized how good Edgardo Alfonso is. He's really good.
Haven't warmed up from vacation yet.
No, yeah, you haven't. But Alonso, Piazza, Keith Hernandez, Howard Johnson, all among those, just below Brandon Nimmo in position player WAR for the Mets all time. So anyway, I find Nimmo to be just consistently underrated. He's probably the left fielder for Texas. They'll move Evan Carter over to right. They non-tendered Adolis Garcia. So you got that, and you got Langford in center. That's probably the new outfield for the Rangers. And they're kind of, I don't think they're rebuilding, but they're trying to keep the plane in the air without spending more money. Or while spending even less, a little less. But it's not like we're punting away a season or two, at least based on how they're doing things so far. It would take something like a Jacob deGrom trade for me to think, all right, they're willing to give up a season or two of contending by doing that to save money. I don't think they're at that point yet by action anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I was banding about this idea of trading Adolis Garcia with someone in the know in that organization, a couple years ago. But, in 2023, he's coming off a season in which he hits 39 homers, was 28% better than league average. And it's like, yeah, I know his approach is bad. And, I know there's some flaws here, but, he's coming off a season in which he hit 39 homers and was 28% better than league average. Like, what's he going to fall off from there? And then he just fell off pretty hard because the approach is so bad that the OBP dropped so much that even the next year when he hit 25 homers, it was a 94 WRC plus, and he was already below replacement because the defense cratered. And it's just one of those things where I this is something that I personally believe is true is, the later your peak is, the quicker you're back out again. Mm-hmm. It's the Ryan Ludwig rule. And I just think, somebody will pick him up, maybe the Giants or something. I could see that being a good deal for them. Somebody will pick him up, but for them, Nimmo is a huge upgrade.
I think they're going to be pretty happy with that. Now, on the Mets side, Semien's value at the plate in 2026. It's my last thought on this trade is I think he's a dreaded, for some people, accumulator in fantasy. But durability and defensive work are great as far as just driving your playing time. Semien probably hits in the bottom third of the Mets order. given what we've seen over the last 2 seasons. A 230s average, a low 300s OBP, sub 400 slugs. We're talking about a guy that has a 6% barrel rate pretty consistently, still efficient as a long tail base stealer. I could see him still being a useful fantasy player because of how much he typically plays. He had 6 consecutive seasons, throwing out 2020, of 700 or more plate appearances prior to getting hurt in 2025. And yeah, I know there's like a little bit of you're durable until you break, but it's fractured foot. It wasn't like a soft tissue, wasn't a back, wasn't something that you're generally worried about. So I could actually see Marcus Semien being a lot of people's, I had to wait at second base because I filled everything else first. And now he's the guy that I like because even though it's a lot of playing time with a low average, it's probably going to be better than typical production for the position in runs. It's going to be solid in homers. It's going to be okay in steals. And it might even be passable in RBIs too, given the quality of that Mets lineup.
Yeah, I have him circled as a guy I'm interested in just that situation. I feel like second base is a really terrible position this year in the sport. You've got your 2 top guys in Ketel Marte and Jazz Chisholm, and both of them have dicey injury histories. So, there's a little bit more risk attached to the top 2 guys. And then I think you just wait and you pick up Ozzie Albies or Marcus Semien late, and you just hope for a rebound from one of them.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to play it at second base. Position previews 6 weeks away if you're counting like me. If you're a total sicko.
Does this mean that the Mets are like pretty hard in on Tucker or Bellinger?
No, because they have the F word. They have flexibility, right? They have some internal options. I think Carson Benj is close, right? Like he's going to be an impact player.
I don't think you want to
field.
buy a center fielder, so I actually do think he will play a lot of center field next year, and he may get it out of spring, like they've said. They were 15th, to 17th, depending on the defensive metric as a team. So they care about defense. Some of this trade was about defense. And with Semien at second, Vientos at first, and Benji at center, they would be a better team, but it would also feature Jeff McNeil as a starting left fielder.
Or Ryan Clifford by the end of the season. I mean, I think they have a couple other options. AJ Ewing's pretty interesting. Jet Williams could play some. Those are not
Mets,
guys,
man.
Yeah,
they're going to be in on somebody.
Those are more likely guys you're trading if you don't sign one of Tucker or Bellinger to go get the corner outfielder you want. But they have some internal options at the very least. And I'm curious to see how those options are molded into either replacements or how they fit into a job battle for maybe like one available spot to begin the season. Because I don't think you want multiples of that group on your opening day roster. I don't think that's the goal, at least if you're the Mets.
Yeah, but if they don't buy one of the free agents, I don't really see a team that is going to sell between now and opening day that has good corner outfielders that are just for sale. I mean, you could say the Brian Reynolds situation, but the Pirates just said they're spending money and they're trying to push. I mean, yes, they could trade Brian Reynolds, but is Brian Reynolds, is that the idea here? Maybe. I mean, that could be something they could do. Do you try to take some money out the Padres' hands? Is there some actual smoke to the Tatis fire?
There you go. I think something like that is more likely than the Reynolds path. Like use the full scope of your imagination, given their ability to take on money and other teams' desire to shed money. That, I think, gives the Mets a little bit of leverage as they try and find that next level and make a deeper playoff run in 2026. Let's get to another deal.
Steven Kwan deal is,
Yeah.
There's some rumors there.
What does Steven Kwan make? Like $7 million? The Guardians don't want to pay him $7 million. You kidding me? $7 million for Steven Kwan? The Dolans would never do that. There's got to be a league minimum player they can get in there instead, right? It's Cleveland. I'm sorry, Guardians fans. You deserve so much better.
Half as good for a tenth the money.
They love that. Let's get to this next deal. The Cards trade Sonny Gray to the Red Sox in a 3-player swap. 2 pitchers go back to St. Louis. Where I do see a little more of a lowercase r rebuild. Chaim Bloom now calling the shots, so I imagine he'll make the roster look more the way he wants it to now that he's fully in charge for the Cards. Brandon Clarke and Richard Fitz are the two pitchers going back to St. Louis. We'll get to what their situation looks like here in just a minute, but how good is Sonny Gray at this stage of his career, and how much does leaving Busch Stadium and going into Fenway Park for half of his starts, facing teams in the AL East a lot instead of the NL Central, how does that shift Sonny Gray's overall outlook for you for 2026?
Yeah, it's pretty amazing. I think that this deal for Sonny Gray points to a lot of different ways in which pitchers are evaluated and how the league is evaluating pitchers. Because if you look at Sonny Gray from these different metrics, you get totally different, ideas of how good of a pitcher he is. I mean, is he ace or is he mid? His ERA percentile last year was 33rd. That's not good, but his wins above replacement percentile was 83rd. Stuff 44th. So he's in middle of the pack, but his location was a little bit better than middle of the pack, 57th percentile. But then you sum it up in does he control the plate? And his strikeout minus walk rate was 90th percentile. So that says elite. And that's something that's been true for 2 or 3 years. It's not just what happened last year. He is an elite strike thrower and gets great strikeout rates for it. But I tend to be a stuffist, and I tend to say, he has one elite pitch in that 85-mile-an-hour sweeper, and we've seen some drop in velocity in the fastball already. And for me, he's a great one-year option. Makes a lot of sense for the Red Sox for next year. But in terms of would I sign him to a long-term deal? What do I think of him? I think he's more of a second division number 2 than a Red Sox number 2. I think that there could still be another move in Boston's future, because this is a guy who's throwing a below average fastball. And he is, as you mentioned, moving from a park that was last year, the Cardinals park suppressed home runs with as the 5th best park for suppressing home runs. While you go to the Red Sox, it's actually not a place that augments home runs, but it is a place that augments offense. So he would see a lot more doubles off the monster and things like that. I was surprised to see that Sonny Gray has reverse platoon splits and actually has been getting lefties out better than righties, given that he's such a breaking ball guy. I don't know that I would continue. I would expect that to continue. So I don't know. I think he's a good pitcher. I think this deal makes sense for them. It's obviously he's an upgrade over Richard Fitz in the short term. And I think for me, he's more of a 2-3 than a solid 2. I think I'm going to be putting him in the 40s in my rankings.
Yeah, I'm looking at the 7-day ADP over at the NFBC. All pitchers included. Sonny Gray, 49th among pitchers in ADP right now. That includes probably 10, maybe 12 different closers. It's around pick 120. Puts him next to, among starters, Kevin Gausman, Shane Bieber, and then Nick Lodolo and Chase Burns are both in there too. So I kind of get the let's value Gausman, Bieber, and Gray similarly. Older guys that maybe have some flaws, but generally a good enough track record where you feel good about them from a fantasy perspective, probably as your number 3 starter in a 15-team league. That's what you're looking at in that draft range. But all 3 of those guys would seemingly have quite a bit lower ceilings than the likes of Burns and Lodolo at this stage of their careers. And Jacob Mizorowski goes near there too. So you've got hey, do you want the established veteran, or do you want to start taking a swing at that, what'd you call it, the hot 7? The number of pitchers in that group.
Hype 7.
The hype 7. Yeah, the hype 7. You're living right on that borderline with the boring vets, and Gray's a part of that.
Yeah, I'm gonna take him after that group. I think there's enough with a 37-year-old that there might be decline there. There is the flip side that is good in terms of team is not only the possible more wins with Boston, but the defense is probably better. Last year, the Cardinals allowed a 329 BABIP with him on the mound. By DRS, Boston is a very big upgrade over St. Louis. By StatCast fair fielding value, they're 6th and 7th respectively, and St. Louis was better. So, I mean, it's so interesting that like you can't just say something definitive. There's no black and white on this one. There's no like Sonny Gray sucks. This was a terrible deal, you know? Or I don't see you can say like, oh, Sonny Gray is basically, you know, an ace, and they're going to have him as their second. I don't go that far either.
They didn't need an ace, capital A ace, because they have Crochet. I think they needed quality. They needed someone that you can trust in playoff starts. I think Sonny Gray probably is a good like number 3 starter on a playoff team. So you did well here. And I think the thing you have to think about as an organization, how easy is it for you to find, scout, draft, develop players like Richard Fitz? I mean, they acquired him in a trade with the Yankees, but he's a 6th round pick, right? Not a critically important part of your future, even though you're giving up years of club control, and teams are always reluctant to do that. And Brandon Clarke was a 5th rounder in 2024. So if you can find combinations of players like that you don't necessarily need and turn them into short-term rentals, 1-year rentals of guys like Sonny Gray, that's probably an okay trade to make as an organization. I know they changed some of the structure of the money to make it a little less of an AAV hit on Gray as well, because that was a huge number.
Yeah. He was
over
a $45 million cap hit.
Yeah.
It was crazy.
Yeah, that's just wild that they had that. But I do think Fitz and Clarke are both interesting going to a team that will have some opportunities. And Fitz in particular, undrafted in the last 7 days over at the NFBC, that's probably going to change because of the two, even if he might have a slightly lower ceiling than Brandon Clarke, he's got a closer proximity to a lot of big league innings.
He's got to be in that rotation. I mean, part of the reason why Boston, I think, felt like they could trade him away was because Connolly Early and Peyton Tolley had moved past him.
Yep.
And, you know, they probably made something like a Kyle Harrison or Richard Fitz available, and the Cardinals probably picked Richard Fitz. One of the reasons I could see them doing it is that, you know, he's ready for innings wise. He's ready arsenal wise. He has a large arsenal. He has the talents and the tools to get lefties out. And he has pretty good velo at 25 years old. Above average stuff and a 96 mile an hour fastball last year. If you look at the splits, you'll see his fastball is better against lefties than it is righty. His gyro slider is better against lefties than it is for righties. But he has that good sweeper against righties. So I think he's got everything he needs. You know, one thing that I would say is this could be a guy that has reverse splits, but the league doesn't stack righties against a righty right away. So I don't think that this will necessarily be a problem this year. And he'll have such a great park. And I think he has things that he could do. He could throw fewer changeups against lefties. The model doesn't really like those. And he could be fastball gyro curve against lefties and fastball gyro sweeper against righties. And that's a fairly nice arsenal with pretty good command numbers on all his pitches. And I like him. Actually, I like him a little bit more than when I first looked at him. I think, you know, I like him best in the St. Louis rotation in terms of price and upside. I mean, Palante and Mike McGreevy are just, I think, low ceiling, decent floor guys that are just, you know, command and keep the ball on the ground type guys. Liberatore has a nice wide arsenal and is a lefty, so Matt Eddy loves him. But you know, he's also kind of a little bit established at this point. It's 333 innings of a poor strikeout rate. And so I'm going to take I don't know exactly what's in this box over all the rest of the guys in that rotation.
Liberatore might be their opening day starter if the season, gets underway like today. Like that's just kind of how it lines up. So I think we'll probably talk to Katie Wu during the winter meetings next week and get a better sense of where the org is headed overall, like how aggressively she thinks they're going to rebuild things in 2026 and possibly 2027, because there are some other decisions that I think that need to be made. They need to sort out within that position player core, like who is actually on their next good team. because there's a few
And
young players there that are intriguing.
how much will they participate in the, buy a veteran on a 1-year deal and try to turn him into some trade value market? That could be meaningful for somebody like Fitz, who's probably slotting in right now as the 4 or the 5. If they go out on the market and sign a Griffin Canning or even like a Martin Perez or Jose Quintana, somebody just to like soak up innings and hopefully he has one of those good years and we trade him kind of deals, then that might push Fitz out of the rotation. But for now, I'm interested in Fitz.
Oh, yeah. Inning sponges to St. Louis make a lot of sense, but I think they will take a few well-crafted short-term gambles to see if they can extract some future value out of a midseason trade or two. The other guy in the trade, Brandon Clarke, has been hurt a lot, hasn't had a ton of innings as a pro yet, has a walk problem so far, but excellent stuff. I mean, the write-ups on him say, at the very least, a high-leverage reliever in the big leagues in the not-so-distant future, but if you keep trying to develop him as a starter, you might actually get something really interesting on that side, too.
And one of the injuries this year was blisters.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not necessarily the worst kind of injuries, but it does show up on the prospects TLDR on Fangraphs. So, the blister's not the only injuries he suffered. In any case, I think he's a fine second piece. And the trade was more about Fitz in the short term.
Yep, absolutely. But nice to see wheeling and dealing already getting done before the winter meetings. There was one of the Red Sox kind of footnote story as a result of this trade. Apparently, they're interested in JT Realmuto, which I thought they were pretty happy with what they got from Carlos Narvaez behind the plate. But I was a little surprised to see that report.
I mean, they have not had the greatest situation and at catcher. Narvaez was a good situation, but he's a 27-year-old who had bounced around for a little bit, up and down for New York, and I'm not sure that like last year wasn't sort of the upper bounds of what he can do, and you could still have Narvaez and Realmuto. Where Narvaez handles most of the defensive reps, and you start transitioning Realmuto into a little bit of a DH situation. But then again, they have Masataka Yoshida, so it's one of those things where I think Realmuto maybe fits after Yoshida trade if they do that.
Yeah, Yoshida's still got 2 years left on that deal. I don't know. I don't know if they're just going to have to eat that, or if there's some team out there looking to just spend some money that'll take part of it on, and the Red Sox can eat half of it or 3/4 of it and free up that spot. But at this point, it's an 88 WRC plus, just 55 games coming off the injury last year for Yoshida, and I don't think you want that player on your roster if you're in Boston's position, because it does prevent you from doing something like what you described, at least doing it comfortably and taking playing time away from Carlos Narvaez is your only option if you end up keeping Yoshida around and actually playing him, because really he's just a DH, as we have learned.
Yeah, it actually, there's a fit with Tristan Casas, a platoon partner for Tristan Casas, and he kind of replaces Romy Gonzalez as a righty first baseman, catcher, DH. I don't know, man.
We're forcing it. We're forcing it.
I don't think it's happening.
The draw for next summer's World Cup is on Friday at noon Eastern. That's 5 p.m. Greenwich Mean Time if you prefer GMT. And you can watch the Athletic FC's podcast live stream reacting to all the major fallout immediately after the draw has wrapped on their YouTube channel. All right, let's get to the big signing that went down since we last spoke. Dylan Cease gets a 7-year, $210 million deal with the Blue Jays. There are some deferrals in that contract if you're keeping score at home. I'm wondering if this is the top of the starting pitcher market in terms of overall value. We might see more money on a longer deal, but $30 million per, even with those deferrals, that might be the biggest contract that we see for at least a deal this long. Framber Valdez, Ranger Suarez, Tetsuya Imai, all going to be part of that equation. in some capacity as well. But you put me on the spot when we were talking about the starting pitchers at the top of the market before. You said, who would you actually sign? Who do you actually like? And I very reluctantly said Dylan Cease. Part of my hesitation was not being sure what exactly I would change about him and how I would make him more consistent. I'll throw the question to you through the lens of the Blue Jays, thinking about what they care about as an organization, what they do well. How do you think the Blue Jays might change Dylan Cease in terms of either his pitch mix, his location strategies? What could be different about him in Toronto?
Well, they have had a lot of success in Toronto with Kevin Gausman, which seems to be relevant for a couple of reasons. Kevin Gausman is a two-pitch pitcher. Dylan Cease has been largely a two-pitch pitcher. And then Kevin Gausman has a great splitter, and Dylan Cease has been trying to learn the Kevin Gausman splitter. And he did it from afar last year, only threw 30 or 40 of them. But now he'll be right next to Kevin Gausman, and he'll be with an organization in Toronto that threw the second most splitters in minor league baseball last year, according to Baseball America. So, maybe this is an organization that cares a lot about splitters, that, drafted Trey Savage and signed Kevin Gausman and thinks they can add the splitter to Dylan Cease's arsenal. In any case, if you just look at his ranks like we did with Sonny Gray, you can tell that, again, the market values stuff. Here's a guy who was 27th in ERA last year. I think you can safely say that ERA is not something that teams care about. They're not signing guys based on ERA. His stuff was 88th percentile, and his location was around the 50th percentile. But again, like Sonny Gray, great K-BB, 84th percentile for Dylan Cease last year. So the market values stuff in this case. They value age. He's 29 to Fromber's 32. And they value longevity in Cease's case. And actually in Sonny Gray's case too. He's been pretty good at, giving you sort of 140, 150 innings. Cease is one of the innings leaders over the last 3 years. So I think that, this is, if he is just who he's been, which is great every other year, then that's fine. We just want him to be a high stuff guy that he's a playoff starter, right? We will just take some of the bad years in terms of command. We'll just take those years as part of the picture. Or they think, if we add the splitter to him, we can really add a level of consistency where he's consistently the best Dylan Cease he can be over the next few years.
Yeah. I mean, there's a few ways to look at him. The durability thing you mentioned is really important. He's 7th in innings pitched since the end of 2020. It's only Logan Webb, Kevin Gausman, Jose Barrios, Zach Wheeler, Framber Valdez, and Luis Castillo are ahead of Dylan Cease in regular season innings. Pretty interesting. Chris Bassett, also a J, number 8 on that list. So I think Toronto values durability, or has found ways to not hurt pitchers. Probably more likely the former. I don't know if anyone's really solved the how do we not hurt pitchers thing, but I think that's something teams will pay for too. Durability year in and year out matters.
And if you just take his steamer projection for next year, which is 3.8 wins, and that's right in between kind of where he's been. He was a 4.7 win pitcher his first year in San Diego, but he's been 3.5 the other 2 years. So you give him a 3.8 projection, you start aging him a half win at 30. And what you get is he's a above average pitcher until the last year of the deal when he's a 1-win type guy. You get 19 wins for your $210 million. That's not bad. That's just right around where the market is in terms of dollars per win. The cap hit is $26 million because you spread it out a little, the way you've done it. And so with some deferrals, the present value is actually more like a $186 million deal. In which case you're spending less than $10 million a win. So just in terms of like the cap analysis, efficiency, dollars per win type stuff, it looks great. And I think that means that they're okay with some of the variance here. Some years he'll be their 4th best pitcher and some years he'll be their best pitcher.
Yeah, that's just built in. I think we saw a similar approach for Blake Snell for a long time, and I'm just curious if we can get the I don't know the 30s, like the second part of Dylan Cease's career, to be more consistent from a command perspective. And if that comes in, then I think you get a few seasons where it's more good than bad, all kind of strung together. I think that's at least a possibility, depending on those adjustments, and maybe there'll be a location adjustment or something else that Pete Walker and company have cooked up aside from the possible addition of a splitter for Dylan Cease. From a fantasy perspective, the would you rathers in this pocket right now for starting pitchers, you got Freddie Peralta and George Kirby going a little earlier than Cease. Do you feel like that is right? Should one or both of those guys be going ahead of Dylan Cease right now?
Yes, I do believe that's right.
So right next to him, you have the two Spencers. It's Cease with Spencer Schwellenbach and Spencer Strider. Who are your would you rather preferences out of that bunch?
I'm taking Cease over Strider because Cease is closer to his great stuff, and Schwellenbach is coming off of a fairly significant injury. I know that the talk is that he'll be ready to begin the season, but I think I'm taking Cease over Schwellenbach too. I do really like Schwellenbach, but he threw so hard that his ligament pulled a piece of bone off his elbow. So,
yeah, he's supposed to have a normal off season though. So things are tracking in the right direction. I think I'm probably taking Cease because of the health over both of the Spencers. That's a tough call. Maybe it depends on how much risk I've already taken on with the pitcher that I've likely drafted already, the starter that's already on my roster in that spot. But it seems like the appropriate price for Dylan Cease. You might get a little bit of a nice bounce back. And I do think, kind of like we talked about earlier, where you think about the park factor, division changes, I think that takes the floor and actually makes it just a little bit worse, even though the team quality is great. San Diego, I thought, was going to be pretty forgiving as a home park for Dylan Cease, and we still saw a pretty disappointing overall set of ratios from him in 2025. So I think you have to bake that in to your Dylan Cease expectations too. It could still be ugly given the difficulty of those matchups in that division. Let's get to some other signings. Ryan Helsley lands with the Orioles, gets a 2-year deal, $28 million. He can opt out after the first year. Some flexibility for him. I think I like this fit for him better than the idea of making him a starter. We saw some rumblings and reports that teams were interested in Helsley as a possible rotation addition. This path to me seems like his best outcome to get the most money in the long run, because I couldn't quite wrap my head around how his arsenal was going to work well as a starter. He, to me, seems like a guy that has found it with his max fastball velo in the bullpen and trying to work with less than that as a starter and having the secondary mix and the command necessary to thrive in that role. I just couldn't quite make that make sense. In this case, he goes to Baltimore. We know he's the clear-cut closer because Felix Bautista's hurt. If Helsley's really good, he opts out. He gets a multi-year deal next winter. If he's just kind of okay, he guaranteed himself a second year, right? So it's kind of a solid choice for him to go into this spot, probably go in and put up 30 saves. Is he or is he not in your circle of trust? Basically, are you buying in for a Ryan Helsley rebound, same as Mike Elias and company are in Baltimore?
Yeah, I am. I think the would you rather for me, without looking at ADP here, let's see if I've nailed the market, is him or Suarez, Robert Suarez, considering he would sign as a closer probably. And I would take Helsley over Suarez because I believe the strikeouts will be better. And I think Helsley will figure out the pitch tipping that we highlighted on the show. And I think he'll be back on the market next year. And I think Helsley made the most sense for Baltimore and San Francisco, two places where they might have a closer in 2027 on the roster and needed something in the short term. So perfect place for him to end up. Maybe he thought Baltimore was closer to contending. Maybe he had the same offer on the table because that's what happens these days in baseball. What do you think that Baltimore has left to do? It's all in the starting rotation, and over at Fangraphs, it looks like they might have another $30 million to spend this offseason just to keep pace with last year. So
Where would I spend $30 million on this roster? I mean, lineup top to
Fromber,
bottom looks solid. Hmm,
Fromber, Imai.
I'd rather have Imai than Fromber. So if I can get Imai, I think that's just the move. And I still want to make a trade, man. I think they're still one heavy in the position player group. But I'm so used to watching a team that punts the 9 spot in the lineup. Maybe I'm just too comfortable with that build.
Yeah. I mean, I think that I would hold on to the bats and just use money for pitching and try to get some short-term deals. Maybe Imai has to be the long-term deal, but I think that what they should do is what they did before with some of the short-term, $10 million guys on one-year deals, $12 million guys, do one or two of those guys, but also do a big investment. And their sheets are so clean. The only person they owe any money to after 2027 is Samuel Basayo. And they owe him $1.6 million in 2028.
Well, yeah, this roster will get expensive quickly because of arbitration. They're going to have a lot of guys that start hitting those years. And that's going to be the interesting part of the equation, too, is just who do you extend? Who do you try to get similar? You're not getting the same deal that you have on Basayo because a lot of their guys have more service time already. So it's going to cost you more. But do you try to extend Gunnar now? Do you try to extend Holiday now?
Extend Gunnar now after a bad season. I would be trying so hard right now to extend Gunnar if I were the Orioles.
Right. So some of the, like, what they have to spend may have to go into an extension like that. But I think the general idea of them getting another starting pitcher makes a ton of sense. If you said choose between Fromber and Imai, I think I'm choosing Imai. His comments, by the way, about wanting to beat the Dodgers instead of join the Dodgers, I found that to be very interesting. I just thought, like, okay, of the places that he could go and do that, do we have clues as to where he ends up? Or is he just being an extremely confident human?
I mean, one clue would be the Giants, who go up against the Dodgers. But does he feel like he's joining a team that can really beat the Dodgers?
Are they built? Yeah, are they built to beat the Dodgers? I don't think they are.
Right, and so
that's probably the Mets, isn't it? Like at least a team that's trying to use resources to do it.
Yeah,
that to me would be the most likely fit.
But is part of that sentiment? I don't want to join a team that already has Japanese players on it. I kind of want to go somewhere where I'm creating an identity for myself in this space. Is that part of what he's saying? There have been players who've been wanted to kind of go and be the first player, first Japanese player on a team, versus ones that wanted to join with a team that already had players on it, like the Ichiro versus whatever, Roki versus Ichiro, right? Roki was like, yeah, I want to be somewhere where I'm comfortable and I want to play with Shohei. Ichiro was like, I want to create my new identity, and it was really good for Ichiro. Like he's a Mariner for life. You know what I mean? He's like, he created such a melding of his personal brand and the team brand that, he's the first person you think of almost when you think of the Mariners,
I think of Griffey and Ichiro kind of like simultaneously because of my age. Like those are the first two guys I picture. And then I think about Dumper and Julio, I guess, because of where we're at in time right now.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then Randy Johnson, old school Mariners, he pops into my head. Although I think of Randy Johnson so much more with the D-backs. Just more core Randy Johnson memories in my brain come from that era.
Yeah.
But there you go. That's how my brain works with the Mariners. I want to know from Mariners fans, like, who do you think of first? Like, age is going to be a big factor in that one too.
Right.
But I like what the Orioles have done so far this offseason. It's still light in the rotation for all the reasons we've talked about, and I say that as someone who really likes Kyle Bradish this year. You could maybe talk me into Kyle Bradish being a top 15 or top 20 pitcher, and I'm not going to say that's ridiculous, but how much of a follow-up to what we just saw from Trevor Rogers
can you pencil in? 35th,
that's
your best
safer
pitcher
because
and he's ranked 35th.
That's the safer way to play it right now because we haven't seen a full season back from TJ yet, but the early indications were really promising. Trevor Rogers' rebound last year was great, but you're not banking on a full season of that in 2026. Dean Kramer's okay. Tyler Wells has an innings problem, even if you think he's kind of good. Like if he's a number 3 on a per inning basis, he's more of a 5 in terms of how much workload you project on him. So they still have a pretty clear need there, even though they're off to a nice start so far this offseason.
God,
how about this one, man?
4.3 ERA projected for Trevor Rogers.
Yeah, that's going to be a little bear to wrestle with, I think, for you.
Yeah.
This one, I think, is one you've been on for a while, though. Raisel Iglesias has returned to Atlanta. 1 year, $16 million. You've been down on Raisel Iglesias for a while, probably 3 years running now, if my memory serves correct, where you've been at least like lower than the field in terms of trusting him.
And I've been wrong.
Well,
I've been wrong.
You've been Whit Merrifielded. I was wrong about Whit Merrifield every year until I flipped and finally believed, and then he finally just wasn't as good anymore.
I expected this chart to be so different. You know, honestly, here's the chart of Raisel Iglesias' fastball. And of course it's going down, but like last 4 years, it's been 95 or 95.5 or 94.9. Like, I don't know. That's actually pretty steady, isn't it?
Yeah. And he's a 4-pitch closer. So his 4-seamer is less important than a lot of other closers. I'm still calling him a closer. He's going to be 36 in January. Is he the closer?
I have no idea, dude. Like, this is not a good bullpen right now. Raisel Iglesias is the closer if Dylan Lee and Joe Jimenez and Aaron Bummer are his, who he's going up against. They've got Joel Payamps. Like, what is this bullpen? It does not look. I would say this is, if you call the Braves a contender, and I think they are, I would say this is one of the worst bullpens among contenders.
Borderline offensive, actually. I mean,
isn't it? Isn't it? Like, it's pretty bad.
for all the crap we gave the Cubs pre-2025 for neglecting their bullpen, I would say the current iteration of the Atlanta bullpen is probably on that kind of level right now. And look, it's the first day of December. You can do a lot to change it. And maybe something kind of falls out of their rotation mix that ends up in the bullpen too, right? Like, I don't know. Where are we at health-wise with some of the guys that they previously thought were going to be starters? Like, I know
Grant Holmes could be a pretty good reliever, maybe.
Right. He started a throwing program in September, partially torn UCLs, like probably healthy by spring training. I like him more as a reliever than I do as a starter. Ronaldo Lopez started throwing off a mound in September as well. What if he's actually a reliever again instead of a starter? Maybe that's part of how you get there. The other kind of bummer is Joe Jimenez had another knee surgery.
I know, man.
A cleanup, at least, on his left knee. So hopefully that gets to the point where he can pitch again.
They give Iglesias $16 million, and in terms of their payroll page, like, they're pretty much right where they were last year in terms of payroll already. So, are they going to go past, right now they're already at 211. I doubt they go into the luxury tax. So, maybe they have 20 million they want to spend and keep some powder dry for the regular season. Are they going to blow it all on Suarez? I don't see it. Could they convince Devin Williams to take like a pillow contract and take basically the Helsley contract? Could they? I could see that. Maybe getting another reliever for 15 million that will just be there for a year. Another thing that would be kind of Braves like would be like Emilio Pagan. The crowdsource of Fangraphs gives Emilio Pagan 1 year and $8 million. I mean, I think
like the crowdsource at Fangraphs. I think they're right. They are reading that situation correctly.
And I would, I think he's sort of undervalued as a reliever. So that might be the way they go. The Cubs went and got Phil Maton for, basically 2 years in that same money. And Maton has a bad fastball. He's kind of on the craft. I was calling him Pierce Johnson because he already throws like 60% curveballs. So I would take Pagan over Phil Maton myself. because he has a good fastball. I like fastballs. In my relievers, I want them to have good fastballs. So, I guess they could add Pagan, but, add Pagan, have Iglesias, and get maybe off the very bottom of the contenders' bullpen rankings, but maybe not.
If you were in Alex Anthopoulos' shoes, though, would you have gone the Maton plus something else route instead? Would you rather have had two guys like Maton having to go the second year on both? You'd rather just go with the Iglesias option?
I think so. He's proven enough. He can at least get you there. And what you're hoping is you identify some high 90s young guy that basically becomes your de facto closer in the playoffs. Because I wouldn't really want to run Iglesias out there as my playoff closer. You know what I mean? So I think that's possible on a 1 year and $16 million deal. Maybe Fairbanks is another guy that could maybe want to take a pillow contract that has high stuff. And would you hope is he's just healthy at the right time? But I don't know if you save the whole bullpen with this. I mean, it's not going to be a big strength of theirs.
Yeah, Fairbanks is tricky for me because now he's coming off of his best major league workload, right? 60 innings, career high for him as a Red.
But he may want a 3-year deal or something.
But he's had 2 years in a row now with a sub 25% K rate. The stuff just has not been there. The results were good, 2.83 ERA, 104 WHIP. But I think teams are going to look at him probably more similar to that Maton deal. I mean, this is a guy that's going to be 32 in later this month. So I don't think you have high expectations there. That Devin Williams concept you threw out there is interesting, but I would say if I were advising Devin Williams, and I'm not, so this is free advice that no one needs or wants, I don't think I take a Helsley-like deal because the velocity, it's 94 right now. Even though he's been able to hold that for 4 years, what if you lose a tick? I think you have to have a lot of confidence that you can hold or even nudge that velo up if you're taking a pillow deal. And I'm not sure that's going to happen at this stage. Whereas Helsley has plenty of velocity. I think that made a lot of sense to say, I'm going to just have a year, clean up the pitch tipping, reestablish my value, and come back and get a multi-year deal next year. I think this multi-year deal that Devin Williams might be looking at this winter is just as good as what he's going to get offered a year from now.
You could try to pair the anti-Raisel Iglesias, Sir Anthony Dominguez. And just be like, do we get the good command year? Yeah.
Yeah, that'd be pretty interesting.
I'm going to give him an incomplete on this, but I think on the end, it won't be, it still won't be a great strength of theirs. They're looking for something. I don't know if it's internally, if there's a prospect I'm missing in Atlanta that might help them this way.
I was almost wheezing moments ago when I glanced over at the ADP chart and saw Raisel Iglesias has an ADP of 60 in the last 7 days.
No.
He's a late 4th round pick. What is I understand that the security of the role is really important when you're playing in the draft and holds right now, but I'm less of a skeptic than you've been for the last several years. There is no chance I'm drafting him near that. Even the max pick 77, still too early. I want him around like pick 100 if I'm doing that. So an easy player for me to avoid at the current.
Yeah, I'd rather have Helsley
parse
than Iglesias.
And I think Helsley will probably jump up around a price like that for the rest of early draft season. Yeah, because I think we know based on comments and the deal and all that's the role now. Whereas there was just some uncertainty of is he going to join a good bullpen and just be the 8th inning guy? That was a possibility.
There was some conversation on social media about Devin Williams right now. He's going as the 13th best reliever. And whether or not you should take him on that price, because in early drafting, his role is, you don't know what his role is. You don't know where he's signing. And somebody came in, and I wish I could tell you right away who it was, but somebody came into the conversation and said that traditionally unsigned players, no matter where they sign, their draft position goes up after, like they get more expensive after they sign. So even if they don't sign into great situations, that that actually is an opportunity for arbitrage, where you're going to get a player, because if Devin Williams signs somewhere, even if he doesn't sign to close, he'll probably be one of the best non-closers, in that you could draft. And he might still go around 15th or 16th above the bad closers, because you might be taking him and saying he'll be a closer by May or something. You know what I mean?
The assumption I would make is if a player like Devin Williams, and Helsley would have fit into this category prior to signing with the Orioles too, if he signs with a team that has an established closer already and he's not going to close, that's a good team where he's going to win games because he's pitching the eighth, a lot of close games, and he's going to sneak 5 or 6 wins in. And in drafting,
you might
he's
still
going to end
get
up
10
at a point.
saves on the off days.
It could, with the off days or an IL stint for the closer, get some saves. And those guys are actually sneaky valuable, especially if they are putting up elite ratios. So if you still believe in the skills, I think you can pay the premium on Devin Williams right now, even without the certainty of where he's going to be and how many saves you're likely to get. And maybe one of your later save darts will come through with worse ratios, but 15 or 20 saves instead of the, 8 or 10 that you get from Williams, if he lands in one of those setup roles. All right, before we go, a few follow-ups from some stuff we were tracking prior to our little Thanksgiving break. Josh Hader expects to have a normal offseason. I love when people are going to have a normal offseason. Like, that's all I want to hear this time of year. Just go through.
It's good that he doesn't have to
stuff.
rehab his injury any further. I mean, we would rather he came back and pitched for us in the season, but.
Yep. I already did the rehab assignment, completed that a few weeks ago. That is a really good sign for him coming off that
he's
shoulder strain.
Still going, what, 4th or 5th among closers?
Hader, pick 52, range 47 to 58. So only Bednar, Chapman, Mason Miller, Cade Smith are on, and Edwin Diaz. And Munoz going ahead of him. Holy smokes, Andres Munoz in the second round? Oh. Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
There you go.
Man, the draft and hold market is fierce.
Yeah.
I shouldn't be surprised, but I'm a little surprised. That's very aggressive.
Cade Smith seems to be
played that way.
Like a good place where, he's in the circle of trust. He doesn't cost me, the top 3 reliever status, right?
It's pick 31 to 40 in the last 7 drafts. So that's the 3rd round.
Jeez, who am I getting in the 4th?
Who are you getting in the 4th? Probably Hader or Raisel Iglesias.
No.
Or you're pushing up one of Suarez, Williams. You're probably not taking Carlos Estevez in that range. He's going in the 5th, but you don't want him.
Yikes.
Trevor McGill lives in that 6th round range right now.
Yikes.
Oh, you wait a little longer. You can have Kenley Jansen.
No, that got ugly quick. What the heck? Why did that go downhill so quickly?
You can set the new market for Helsley in the 4th round if you believe in everything that we're saying about his bounce back.
Let me see what I got here. Do you remember who you picked at closer?
I took Hader in the FPOS draft where I had no idea if we were going to get that good follow-up yet, but just felt like the market was so bad that I'd rather burn the pick on someone that I believe to be very good and just have them be hurt than take someone that I don't believe in. I'm sorry, Carlos Estevez. You actually seem like a really nice person. I couldn't do that. I could not draft a closer I didn't believe in the 5th round. Couldn't do it.
I took Cade Smith.
Yeah, where'd you take him?
No, I got him in round 5.
Yeah, that's probably not the norm. So that's why you felt good about him falling, because he fell to you.
Yeah, because he fell to me in my one draft. A sample of 1. Good
do not get into a December draft and hold for money
thinking you're going to
expecting
get
that
Cade
to
Smith
happen.
in the 5th. Yeah.
Yes, I love those November drafts at first pitch, but they're outliers. They are not played quite the same way as the DCs, where everyone's got their stuff all ready to go. There's a lot more prep, I think, that has been done for the folks in the room, especially by now in the early part of December.
I'm ready for my first draft. Have you started one? You started one.
No, I'm going to do one. Ooh, should I do one before we go to the winter meetings? I don't want to do one during the winter meetings, do I?
Actually,
We're
we'll be all
mostly
looking
sitting
at our
around
phones.
waiting for stuff.
Yeah, I think I'm going to do one. I'm going to start one this week.
Maybe I'll start when we get there, like Monday
Mm.
morning. That'll be like the subplot of the whole thing. I'll be doing a draft while we're there. That's the plan. Great content.
And I'll be at a different part of my draft. Might work.
Yeah, so we'll both be distracted. Great.
Tell us if you what you want to hear from our coverage of the winter meetings too. We did some really interesting things in the past where we interviewed people within the industry, but I think as much as we will do a little bit of that probably. I think people just really want to know what their team is doing and what the newest news is and what could happen. It's mostly about dreaming about your team. More than anything. So that's my inclination. But let us know in the Discord what you would like from our winter meetings coverage as well.
Yeah, we're happy to try and make that more listener and viewer friendly. Thumbs up, thumbs down on these news items as we go. Sean Manaea did not need elbow surgery for the bone spurs. I think that's an obvious thumbs up from both of us. Good to hear that we got that update. Sung Moon Song, posted by his KBO team, maybe a late bloomer out of the KBO joining the free agent market.
I think he has the defense to stay at third. The question is what the power is like. If he is like a Ha-Seong Kim type at third base, what would that look like for people? Would that sounds like to me like a second division trying to catch lightning in a bottle, like a Pirates signing or something like that,
Or a very thrifty contenders sort of build.
The Dodgers did sign Ha-Seong Kim in a similar situation.
But I wasn't thinking like the Gatsbys. I was thinking like, more like the Brewers.
Ah, yeah, right.
Yeah. Jordan Walker.
Who is your third baseman on the draft on the chart right now?
Caleb Durbin.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
You seem unamused. You seem very, very unimpressed by the Brewers.
Well, no, because you could actually sign Song, push Durbin to second, and Turang to short.
And Ortiz to utility. Yes.
If you think Ortiz is toast as a everyday starter.
That could happen. That could be the case. Or you just give yourself depth, right? Not a bad thing. How about this one? Jordan Walker found something while working on his swing at Driveline in October.
Yeah, I mean, I will get shares of Jordan Walker this year just because it'll just be a bat speed play. You got to listen to somebody who has like the same swing as in a lot of ways as Junior Caminero. It's a super flat, super speedy swing. And if he does find something, I do think that the top end outcomes are not there anymore. I guess I'm hoping for an Adele like career arc without the speed. Where, I don't think I'm ever going to get a 370 OBP from Jordan Walker. I think it'll be low OBPs, low batting averages, and you're just hoping he outslugs any of his problems.
I think the Caminero comp, just based on the swing type, is really interesting because I think that offensive profile is maybe if there's a true pie in the sky, what Caminero just did in 2025 would be the ultimate ceiling for Walker. 45 homers, 264, 311, but like a big slug. The question is going to come down to cutting down the Ks, right? If Walker can do that, then I think you could see, a 30 home runs would be like the optimistic for 2026 box because you still have some questions about will they play him every single day or will they sit him against some of the tough righties?
Or trade him.
That depends on how crowded they are. Yeah, but there's still a little bit of time on Jordan Walker's side. I found that nugget from RotoWire to be interesting.
It would also, like, if you found something, yes, that can affect your strikeout rate mechanically. But also, are you going to be able to port that over into games? You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I just want him as I don't know, like a draft and hold sixth outfielder. I don't know if that's where he's going. I don't really.
Seventh outfielder, eighth outfielder.
Yeah, that's where I want him. That's like I want him as like, the final, like a bench piece in a 15-teamer where I'm just like, maybe it'll work out or maybe I'll drop him in the third week.
Pick 314 in the last 7 drafts that have happened over the last 7 days. So pretty late for Jordan Walker, but not free, not at like the end of days or anything like that.
Definitely more interested in him than the next name on the Chiron. Why is he on the Chiron?
Oh, Anthony Rendon. He's working on a buyout of the final year of his deal. The Angels. I think that's going to be just deferring some money, right? He's going to get the money. It's just a matter of when. And then he doesn't have to go to spring training and pretend like the season's going to be a thing, right? You can avoid all that, which is probably his
I don't
preference.
actually think. Do you think he'll sign a deal? I think he might just take the buyout and be done.
Oh,
he doesn't seem to love baseball. He's not going to be like, I'm going to take a minor league invite to the Dodgers camp.
No, yeah. The gambit here is that Anthony Rendon doesn't like doing spring training in Arizona and wants to do it in Florida. So he's trying to get a buyout so he can take the minor league deal because he prefers Dunedin to Tempe. No, that's not it. Anthony Rendon wants to disappear. He wants us to forget about him forever, and he wants to go live the next 50 plus years in peace somewhere.
With all that money.
And all that money. Yep. That's it. It's that simple. The Rockies brought back Warren Shaffer. He was the interim replacement for Bud Black as their manager in 2025. Okay, sure. Does it matter either way? Like, I don't know. Let's just see what kind of roster they give him.
Waiting to see a Paul DePodesta move.
Right. Yeah, what's the first move going to be?
Yeah, this doesn't seem like a Paul DePodesta move. I mean, whatever. He's like, you'll be my first fire. Welcome to the team. First guy out.
We've seen someone who's not Paul DePodesta in a movie firing someone. I wonder if it'll be like that. I don't know. It's not good. Firing people has to be awful. Pirates and Marlins looking for their checkbooks. Eno, are you buying it? We're also wearing Pirates and Marlins colors very randomly on today's show. If you're watching us on YouTube, not sure what that's all about.
I'm buying it for the Pirates, but I'm also not buying it as like they're pushing their previous payrolls further than they did. I'm buying it because they cleared money and they have $30 million to spend to get to last year's number.
Right, because they can't. They're realizing they can't spend less ahead of the lockout that is inevitably coming like a year from today.
Yeah, so I think that they will be players for the Sung Moon songs. The the Okamoto will be really interesting to see what his market is like. He has more of a glove than Murakami, so maybe that's your third base replacement. Maybe he costs less than Murakami as well. So I could see them doing something interesting, but do I see them getting Kyle Schwarber? No.
No, the name I saw linked to the Marlins, I think, was Michael King, a player they drafted once upon a time before trading him to the Yankees forever ago.
So, okay. Yeah. You kind of think that they would be in on bats, but
I think there's a little bit of, I say this as someone that thinks that, generally they're going to be an interesting team as this roster kind of comes together. They have to find someone willing to take their money. Mm-hmm. There's something about the uncertainty of how long it's going to be before you win and how likely it is you could be traded in a couple of years. Like, yeah, we're opening up our checkbooks right now, but we might be slashing payroll again 2 winters from now. And hey, guess what? You're our highest paid player now because we signed you as a free agent 2 winters ago. So now you're on the move again and you're not going somewhere you want to go. So I think there's a little bit of the market gets shrunk because of how past ownership groups have forced this team to operate. And I think they don't have a lot of goodwill out there, and it's deserved.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing I can think of is like a big deal to like Pete Alonso that it's like more years than anybody else wants to put down, and Alonso just takes the money, because at the top, you think Schwarber, Bellinger, Tucker, Bichette, and Bregman, they're going to get multiple offers that are, close to $200 million. right?
I don't know if it's because he grew up in Florida, and I
Or
realized
at least
that
more than $100 million. And they're going to be able to choose between teams, is my point.
not all Florida is the same. Like Bo's from Florida. Like, would Bo actually be a guy that goes to the Marlins in part because maybe they'd play him at shortstop more than a lot of other suitors would, and maybe that's important to him? If he doesn't get what he wants from Toronto, I think staying in Toronto is still the most likely outcome. But I don't know. Maybe that's the dark horse scenario. The Marlins are the team that splashes the money out there to get Bo Bichette.
And we just
seems far fetched.
We just named all of the impact bats that are on free agency. Unless like Suarez gets more money, Suarez, but I think his point of the career, he just wants to sign somewhere he might win. Probably. It's going to be a short deal option with good AAV, and I don't think the Marlins aren't going to be like, we'll give you 5 and 100.
No, I don't think the Marlins are dumb in the front office. I don't think they were dumb in the front office the last group either with Kim Ng. I think they were going to make generally smart decisions with who they'd pay if they were going to pay anybody. So, I don't think they would spend it just to spend it on an older player like that. I think a surprising deal with Bo makes it like the more likely splashy move. Or Michael King, maybe someone that has more questions because of health. Maybe they take the longer term deal to get the guarantees.
They need to just see more of an opportunity in the pitching market to get somebody who can be around for 3, 4, 5 years, without spending at the top end. Yeah, I could see that. You mentioning that, somebody like Gabe Kapler is now the GM, and the kind of moves that they made makes it less likely that they are the team that's like Pete Alonso. Here's, 7 years and $180 million.
Right. But if you look at your org and you say, we don't really have a long-term shortstop, maybe we'll find one in the next couple of drafts. Let's just sign Bo. Bo can be our shortstop for 2 or 3 years, and then we'll solve shortstop, and Bo will be our second baseman, and we'll have a face of the franchise that we sort of have right now, but might be trading if we trade Sandy Alcantara, right? So, I don't know. That's the typical space the Marlins live in. I'd love to see something like that, except for the hurt that it would cause Jays fans. I want Jays fans to be happy. I don't know why, Why do I want Jays fans to be happy? Is it because they suffer through winter like me? Is it because they have to fix their snowblowers like me? Is that why I have some kind of soft spot for Jays fans?
Fellow snowblower users.
Yeah. I mean, I would assume that of the people that make snowblower content for YouTube, the bulk of them root for the Brewers and the Blue Jays.
I also I have some sympathy for them also as the burden of an entire country of fandom. There's a lot of weight. There is no other Canadian baseball team.
And there should be 3 or 4 teams in Canada, but hey, I'm not the commissioner, right? It's not up to me. I think there's a lot of viable markets in Canada. Haven't done the research. It's just something.
If you live in the Pacific Northwest, visit Vancouver in the summer and go to a baseball game there. It's really fun.
Yep. Vancouver, I think, could do it. Montreal has done it. Could do it. You could probably put 2 teams in Toronto if you wanted to. It's huge. Why not?
They would.
Now I'm making Jays fans sad unintentionally. Oh, Twins fans too. Obviously, I'm not trying to leave Twins fans out. You're either a Twins fan, a Brewers fan, maybe a Tigers fan, or a Blue Jays fan if you're fixing your own snowblower.
The snowblower. I like it. It's the snowblower group. It's this. We do realignment. We just have the snowblower division.
the Briggs and Stratton or the Toro division or something.
Yeah.
On that note, we have to go. Join our Discord. Tell me what other markets I forgot about as snow blowing. I guess he's probably use a snow thrower if you live in Boston too. I don't want you in my division. Stay away from the snow thrower.
No, it's the division. It's fixing the broken snowblower division.
We fix it ourselves. It's it's a V shape at the top of the country. We fix things ourselves around here. Oh man. I'm so deep in the weeds, I'm never going to get out. But we're going to go. Join our Discord with the link in the show description. Thanks to our producer, Brian Smith, for putting this mammoth episode together. Got one more episode coming out before the winter meetings. Got a Friday episode coming up with Jed. So send us some mailbag questions. If you got anything you'd like us to discuss on that episode, you can do that with the mailbag channel in the Discord. That's going to do it for this episode of Rates and Barrels. We're back with you on Friday.
Thanks for listening.